Are you ready to take your love for Spurs to the next level? Because we've got some exciting news for you. We're amping up our membership program. Plus, your ample opportunities to show off your Tottenham knowledge and win some
member access to exclusive shows, Q&A sessions, chances to win We Are Tottenham TV merch.
We always during our watch-alongs. When you watch the
You can even be part of our weekly fan shows and have your say on everything happening at Tottenham Hotspur. It's like being in the locker room with the team. Well, not quite that, but you get the idea.
all of this epic content and exclusive benefits can be yours for just £12.99 per month. That's less than the price of a burger and a pint at the Tottenham Stadium. So don't wait, join our We Are Tottenham community today and take your love for Spurs to the next level. Trust us, you won't regret it. Come on, you Spurs.
What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another panel show. We've got a debutant making his debut today, obviously, is Mitch Fretton. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm very good, thanks, chaps. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm looking forward to chatting about the season and all the goings on at the club over the last few weeks. So yeah,
You're looking forward to talking about that, are you?
I'm just about getting there. I'm sort of having my mind swayed on the whole situation around the club, but of course we know that could change very quickly. So I'm trying to hang on to this positive mood while I've got it.
Well, cling on to it, Mitch, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. But everyone do go and follow him on Twitter. You can see his handle there on screen. A returning guest to the show, we have got Sava from Football Heritage TV. Sava, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm not sure your viewers are going to be happy to see me, but here I am anyway. So hello.
The viewers are going to be delighted to see you, Sava.
I'm sure.
Absolutely
I wouldn't have it any
delighted.
other way.
Everyone
How are you,
welcome with
lads?
open arms. No one be too hasty.
Look, we got to go for exactly an hour today, so we're going to finish at 4:00. We've got 3 topics to talk about, so let's just get straight into it. And we'll start off with you on this one, Mitch. Can Spurs get better without Harry Kane if we were to sell him this summer, next season?
Not straight away is sort of my initial reaction to that. I think the issue is, and I think a lot of people have highlighted it already, is Harry Kane is a one of a kind sort of player. You know, he's one of the best strikers in world football, and it's not a case of being able to just pick up 100 million by selling him to Bayern Munich this summer and going and spending that on a striker that's instantly going to come in and replace him. So it's a little bit of a difficult one for me, because I would like to see us, if he does go, bring in reinforcements in the attacking area of the pitch. I like Richarlison. I like what he has to offer, and I've been relatively impressed with him in pre-season so far. But Harry Kane is sort of just a different beast in that sense to how well he's played for Tottenham over so many years, and he's been so consistent for the club as well, obviously been here since he was a kid, so he leaves a massive hole naturally if he does go. Can we get better? Eventually, yes. You can always get better as a team. You can always improve. And if you sort of were to, I guess, discuss it from the perspective of where we finished in the league last season, you could argue that, yes, we definitely could get better because we could pick up more points across 38 games and finish higher up in the table. We could, Harry Kane could leave this summer and we could go deeper into a cup competition. We could even win one of the cups. It's not impossible. I know it's maybe not as likely because we'd be selling our best player, but would you then argue if we did win something or we finished in the top 4 or top 5 and got Champions League next season, would that make us better? Arguably, yes. So if you're talking about goal scoring output, I think it's very difficult to say yes to that question at the moment. But if you're talking about success as a team, because obviously new manager, new philosophy, new way of playing, then yes, I would say is the answer to that question.
Sava, I'll let you jump in here. What's your reaction to that? Do you think we can get better without Harry Kane this season?
The first thing I'd say is better from what? It's been a shambles. Better from what? Like when
Better
people say we
from
won't be
8th place, no European football.
I think we'll be a better football team without Harry Kane. But notice the words I used there were football team. I think we'll be a much better team. I think for the past 4 or 5 years, we've had managers that everything has just gone through Harry Kane. And fans are scared of that now because everything centralizes through this one man. I think now we've got a manager that has adopted wherever he's been, and he will here as well. We've already seen it in the first 2 games. He's going to adopt a philosophy which doesn't revolve around Harry Kane. Which means that everybody's going to get on the ball, everybody's going to get in the box, everybody's going to score goals. Are you going to have your 30-goal a season man? No. Do you need a 30-goal a season man? No. Hardly anyone in the world has a 30-goal a season striker. Hardly anyone. City, Spurs, Real Madrid last year with Benzema, Lewandowski at Barcelona. Hardly anyone has one. We're no different. I actually think it will be a positive. Listen, this isn't personal against Harry Kane. I actually think we'll become a unit, almost like what Arsenal have done. They don't have a 30-goal a season man, but they've built over the years a team where they will chip in. Brighton finished above us. Their top goal scorer finished on 12. So I think we'll be a better football team without Harry Kane. But we won't have a superstar in the team like we do right now with Harry Kane. I'm all for it. I'm not a Kane fan. I'm a Tottenham fan. So
Sorry, Sava. I completely agree with you, to be honest, and it's something that I've been banging on about for the past couple of weeks. To be honest, I think the way that Ange Postecoglou wants to play. I think we have to be bringing in goals from other areas of the pitch. You know, Sonny's going to need to chip in. Kulusevski is going to need to massively chip in with more than what he's done. Richarlison is going to have to chip in. Maddison, you know, we can get goals from different areas of the pitch, and can be life without Harry Kane and past Harry Kane. And like you say, right, everything under Antonio Conte and especially Jose Mourinho, both of them, to be honest, were centered around Harry Kane. And I think if we bring in a different philosophy of football, which we are doing, that isn't all centered around Harry Kane, then I think, why not? Why can't the goals come from all areas of the pitch?
Can I just say one thing? I think it also depends on age of the fan as well, like how worried people are going to be. You know, I'm at the age now where I've seen Hoddle come and go. I've seen Waddle come and go, Lineker, Gascoigne, Sheringham come and go twice, Bale, Carrick, Modric, Berbatov. The club didn't die. The club carried on. We kept going. You can argue as well that, you know, as I've said before, the season after Berbatov and Keane both went, 2 of them, was the season we started to motor with Harry Redknapp. So I'm not worried about it. I'm really not worried about it. He's been here for a long time. We've had some great years from him. But now let's be a football team. Let's not be, like Pep said, with a Harry Kane team. Let's be a football team.
Yeah. I think the question for me is, it's not necessarily can we be better without Harry Kane. It's can we be better because we don't have Harry Kane? I don't think that's the case. For me, I think that Harry Kane, a Tottenham team with Harry Kane is always going to be a better team, in my opinion, just because he's here. I think if we can get the team functioning in what Saf is saying, in a more homogenous way, playing as a team, but you add in the quality of Harry Kane functioning within that system, within that team, I do think that's going to bring us better results. I do think we are going to be better for it. But that's not to say we can't be better than we were last season, even if Kane leaves, because I do believe what Postecoglou is going to bring with his attacking style of play. I think we are going to start to share the goals around. You see, Arsenal had a great season last season, and but there wasn't. No, I don't think anyone got over 20 goals, did they? Saka got 15, Martinelli got 15, Odegaard got 15. Jesus got 10. Like, you just shared the goals around them all, whereas Spurs had Kane on 30, and then the next one down was Son on 10, and then the next one down was probably Højbjerg on 5. And that was and that's how basically the goals were shared around for Tottenham's point of view. But if we can share the goals around and have a 30-goal a season striker on top of starting to share the goals around anymore, for me, that's always going to be a better situation. So if the question is, are we better off without Harry Kane, or is the question, can we be better without Harry Kane? I would say yes, we can be better without Harry Kane. Are we better off without Harry Kane? I would say no. I don't think we're better off with Harry Kane. I think we're better off keeping Harry Kane in terms of the quality of the team. The question I guess, in terms of following on from this topic, though, do you think we're currently spending the Kane money in terms of what we've seen in the past maybe a few days? Van de Ven's accelerating. We're getting this new striker potentially from Argentina. I mean, you put 2 and 2 together and people saying, look, you're getting a young striker. Is that maybe signaling Kane's leaving? Mitch, what do you reckon? Is it signaling maybe we're starting to spend the Kane money, or is that we are kind of getting ahead of ourselves there?
No, I don't think so. Purely just because, especially with the centre backs, I think everybody at the club and around the club has known that is the area of the pitch that we really need to improve on. And Antonio Conte made it abundantly clear while he was at the club that some of the players aren't good enough to play in his system. And I think Ange has probably found that out very quickly, even though he's only been here for a short time. I think I understand why people are saying, "Oh, maybe we're just spending the Kane money," but there's a lot of, I guess, variables to the whole situation, and the fact that there's still money in the club that hasn't been spent from that investment that was put in a couple of years ago. There's still a big chunk of that that's lying there. I think there's also probably the anticipation of some players leaving. Maybe that's where some of the funds are coming. I know we haven't necessarily been able to ship all the players that we want to this summer, but you have a look at the names circling at the moment, and Ndombele in talks with Galatasaray. Reguilon's got interest from Spain. Højbjerg potentially to Atletico as well. You're looking at possibly 50, 60 million in sales there alone. With a player like Van de Ven, if he's coming in for around about 30, 35 million pounds, that's not a fortune for a centre-back. I would imagine it's because people have seen the rumours about possibly going for Tapsoba as well. And obviously Leverkusen want, nearly 45, 50 million quid for him, which again is a lot of money for a centre-back. So I can see people are putting 2 and 2 together and thinking, right, well, that's adding up to nearly 100 million when you look at the Phillips deal and perhaps the Argentinian fella as well that we've been linked to since yesterday. So I get it, but I don't want to bring myself to believe that that's the Harry Kane money being spent, because there was a lot of improvement that needed to be done. And I think the club basically admitted need to be done over the summer, way before the transfer window opened. And I don't think that Daniel Levy, whether his mind's changed now, I don't know. I don't think he will have been under the impression at the start of the summer that he was going to sell Harry Kane. And I still don't think he wants to sell Harry Kane personally. I don't think so, basically.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. And I think if we were to push the button on a Tapsoba for 50, 60 million plus, I think you'd probably have more arguments that the Kane money is being used. But Sava, how are you feeling on this one? Do you think we've started to spend the Kane money?
I mean, first of all, we haven't spent anything. Let's put that out there, right? First of all, we haven't bought any of these players, all right? So I did a video on it.
Are we rumoured to spend the Kane money?
Yeah. I did a video just now and went, hang on, we haven't actually spent that money yet. But look, I agree with what Mitch was saying. I think let's assume, right, that in the next week you get Van de Ven, Phillips and Valise over the line, right? I think we should be pretty much capable of doing that without selling Harry Kane, right?
100%.
I think the moment, this is where I agree with Mitch completely, the moment you start chucking in hang on, Spurs have had a bid accepted for £50 million or whatever it's going to be for Tapsoba, that's when I start going, hang on, Daniel Levy doesn't move like this. This isn't what Mr. Levy does. So I don't know. Look, it's timing. With Spurs, it's always optics, right? And all of this news that's broken in the last 24 hours has sort of coincided with 48 hours after Bayern Munich have gone home from talking to Kane. So it's like, hang on, is, 2 and 2 together, and you either get 4 or you end up on about 7 million. It's like that with Tottenham. Look, I've had the same stance, by the way, on Kane the whole window. If he doesn't want to sign a new contract, sell him. Do not keep him and let him go on a free. So if he doesn't want to go, and we are selling him, and in the background we're bringing in Tapsoba, Van der Ven, Valise, Phillips, Maddison, Solomon, Vicario, I've got no problem with Daniel Levy doing that. Just because I don't like Levy and Enoch doesn't mean I can't sit here and acknowledge that that's the right thing for them to do. So let's see who we sign in the next 2 weeks, and you'll have your answer as to whether or not we're spending Kane money.
Sava, in Dan Kilpatrick's report, I think a couple of days ago, talking about the Kane move, he said Kane, if Kane does stay, he is potentially open to a new contract in the early stage of the season if Tottenham show significant progress, I think he said, on the pitch under Postecoglou. Is that just a pipe dream? Do you think Kane's just telling us what we want to hear kind of thing? That report, do you believe that for a second?
I don't believe it. In the last 24 hours, right, we've heard 3 reports. 1, that's going to happen. 2, that he's going to take a hit on his wages in Bayern Munich to force a move out because he's desperate. And 3, that he'll go, but it's got to be before Brentford. They can't all be true. Look, Harry Kane's 30 years of age now. And I know that sounds crazy because that's a lot younger than me. So, it's young. But in football terms, he's 30. He's seen how many managers come and go in his time? 6, 7 in his 10 years at the club, whatever it might be. I don't think that a good 3 months at the start of a season can completely change a player of that caliber to think, this project is going to end in goals. Because if you remember, under Jose, we were top at Christmas.
December.
We're top. So there's nothing to say, all right, we have a great start and we go top of the table. All of a sudden, Kane's going to go, this is it. This is the one. I'm going to sign a new 5-year contract. Spurs are going to win cups and leagues. I just fail to believe it. It just feels a bit it feels like clutching at straws clickbait, if I'm brutally honest.
Yeah, and I feel exactly the same way, to be honest. And I've been saying throughout the window that I don't see a reason why to keep Kane for this season if he's just going to run out of his contract and go on a free potentially to a rival, when it's sitting here right in front of us where you can get close to 100 million, if not 100 million, and he goes outside of the league and we don't have to bother playing against him in the coming season anyway if Spurs aren't in Europe. So I think it's right for all parties. I think it's the right time, probably. I mean, I don't think there's ever a right time for Harry Kane to go, but I think this is the best time, probably out of all the times where he's been linked away for Spurs, for him to leave the football club with this new style of play that we are going to be going through. And even so, like in the preseason friendlies, out of the 2 games that we did play, in my opinion, I think the system worked a lot better without Harry Kane in the team than with Harry Kane and with Richarlison leading the line. I don't know how you guys feel, Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's maybe one you have to be a little bit careful with, because Harry Kane, we know, can be a slow starter to the season.
True.
He's always had that August thing with his career where it takes him a little while and he won't score in August and then he get going. I think he's probably just become so accustomed to playing in a certain way and dropping so deep under 3 or 4 managers before Ange that it's going to take a while to adjust. And I think if he were to go to Bayern, I think he'd have the same issue. Bayern Munich are a team that are used to dominating the match heavily. And the expectation would be for him to be in that box all the time, being the last man, and just being that player that's just going to tap the ball into a net when it's put on a plate for him. So I think naturally it's looked easier for Richarlison under Ange because obviously him and Harry are different types of players. I feel like Harry thrives with his, technical ability and his quality on the ball itself. Richarlison makes things happen by running and just putting all of his energy into either recovering the ball, putting pressure on the defenders and winning it back. And then, when he's presented with those chances, he might be less clinical, but he still gets himself in those dangerous positions. So I've noticed it as well, and I agree with you. I think Richarlison has looked better in this Ange system, and I've spoken to a few of my mates about it, and they agree as well. But with Harry Kane, he has so much quality, and he's just so good that I feel like he's able to play in any system. It just will take a little bit of time to adapt. He's got to get used to playing with someone like James Maddison as well, that really creative link that's come into the midfield that, again, we've been missing for a few seasons. So, again, it's just about him not trying to make everything happen himself and just get back to being that goal scorer, that poacher inside the box and scoring goals, because we know that he's capable of that as well. We've seen it for so many years. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see, because I would imagine I can't see Kane being at Munich by Sunday, so I guess we're going to see 45 minutes from him and Richarlison on Sunday against Shakhtar. So we'll get a better look at them once again and see if Kane's maybe changed anything since we played Lion City, and see if he's adapting at all.
Yeah, the great Lion City, which we tore away like they were nothing. But Sava, do you agree? Have we looked better so far in this preseason without Harry Kane? Is that an indictment to Kane being suited to Ange's system?
I just think it's such a small sample size to be able to tell, isn't it? I mean, first of all, it's a shambles that all of our players have had 90 minutes so far of pre-season with 10 days to go until the season starts, and then 2 games sandwiched 48 hours in between each other. Different moan, that one. Look,
don't worry, that's coming up next, Sava. Don't you worry.
Cool. Right, we're getting to that. Right. Look, I think it's really difficult, isn't it? Because look, the opposition we've played hasn't tested us really. I know West Ham beat us, but what I mean is we weren't under siege. We had all the ball. It wasn't really a great sample size. The first pre-season game, Kane. Look, for me, Kane just didn't look fit, if I'm brutally honest, in the first game. Him and Maddison had only joined up to Spurs training, the Wednesday? I think they joined up on the Wednesday, flew to Australia on the Friday. So they'd had like 1 training session and then played on the Monday. So I don't read too much into it. Look, for me, I think Harry Kane, if we're talking about this formation, if it wasn't Harry Kane, if it was another player who was similar to Harry Kane, but not in that ilk, you would say immediately, right, take your Spurs hats off, right? Take your emotion away from Harry Kane. You turn around immediately and you'd say, tactically, this formation does not work with a player like Harry Kane. It doesn't suit a Harry Kane, right? Problem is, Harry Kane is so good, he could probably do it. Yeah. The difficulty you've got is Harry Kane is going to be a victim of his own progression. That Harry Kane that played under Poch, obviously a much younger guy, but was a goal scorer. He had Eriksen, Dembele, Dele Alli, all doing all this stuff behind him, right? And he didn't have to drop deep. Dropping deep has become so, it's just in the rhythm of his game now that he drops deep. And like Mitch said, you don't need to do that now. James Maddison is bought to do that very job. Basuma and Sarr in that first half were camped in the last third of the pitch. So every time you saw Kane dropping deep, you're like, mate, you're not needed here. Like, go away. We don't want you here. We want you in the box. Does that suit a quicker, younger player? Does that suit more Richarlison? I think it suits a Richarlison type, not Richarlison, because I think he's an awful footballer, but I'm sure we'll get into that. But
give him a go, Sava. Come on, give him a go.
Yeah, they've been saying that about Ndombele 5 years in as well. Look, Harry Kane's a top player. Is he the guy that normally plays in this formation? I don't think he is. Can he score goals in any team in the world? Yes. Would he get frustrated that it doesn't all go through him? Possibly. Lots of questions I don't think anyone's got the answer to, right? I would have loved to have seen by now 5-6 pre-season games like all the clubs that are playing the Premier League series in America, playing against top opposition. That's what I would have liked to have seen Postecoglou's brand of football with Kane in the team, with Maddison in the team for longer than 45 minutes to be able to give us a sample size.
Sava, that is big disrespect to the Lion City Sailors, in my opinion. That's what I'm going to say.
Sorry.
But just before we move on to the next topic, Fabrizio Romano has just tweeted regarding Mickey van der Ven, and he says, understand Tottenham's proposal sent to Wolfsburg on Wednesday for Mickey van der Ven was 40 million euros fixed fee plus 5 million euros in add-ons. Wolfsburg want a different payment terms or easier add-ons. Otherwise, a request will be 50 million euro package. And he also goes on to say that Spurs keep working on the Tapsoba deal. Mitch, do you think this one will happen in the end?
I'm just working that out in my head. I think that equates to something like 42, 43 million quid in the end, doesn't it? With
something like that, yeah.
Which, you know, when you put it into perspective for someone that I think's only played in the Bundesliga for one season, is a lot of money, which either tells you that Wolfsburg are trying to fleece Daniel Levy or they rate him that highly. I'm not sure what I've got.
Probably a bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that the deals for Van der Ven and Tapsoba have been stalling for so long now. We're nearly a week away from the Premier League season. We need to bring a centre-back in. And I'm not saying this is going to happen because we all know what the chairman's like, but it's time to sort of bite the bullet and fork up the funds for either. I'd rather both, but either at the moment one of Van der Ven and Tapsoba, because we really, really need that centre back in. Ideally to start against Brentford next weekend. I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but yeah, I feel like it will get done. Whether, as you just said, it will be a change to like the payment structure, or whether we'll just go up in our bid. I'm not sure, but they seem to be the two names and the only two names if you're looking at starting centre-backs that are on our list now. So, well, you either have to pay the money or we're not going to get a new centre-back, and that would just cause chaos. So going off that price, 42, 43 million for Van der Ven, if that's the case and we pay that, I cannot see us then paying over that for Tapsoba as well, forking out nearly 85, 90 million pounds. So I think one will get done. I'd no longer necessarily think that both of them will come to the club.
I think it's a perfect illustration of that tweet of sort of what Savile was saying. We haven't actually spent anything yet. We're still far away from this deal.
Look, he's the thing is, I think as fans we can sit here, and I'll disagree with Mitch slightly on this one. When we talk about is a player worth 42 million, who's only had 1 year in the Bundesliga, look at the market. Look at this market, right? 42 million in this market isn't a lot of money. And if he is your number one target, clubs just go out there and pay it. Like if you look at Villa, for example, Villa didn't mess about, did they? Like they wanted DRB. They spent 7 days, 3 different bids, fended off a team from Saudi Arabia, got their guy. If that's what we want to pay, just pay them. I know it sounds so basic, but just pay the money. If he's your target and and it looks like he has been your number one target for the summer, pay your 42 million, get him in. You're getting an under 21 Dutch captain as well. He's a leader. He fits the Ange system perfectly. And I think that is one of the big things here. When people band about centre-back names, Van der Ven is perfect because of that pace, that recovery, and his ability to break the press on the ball. And lots of other centre-halves that we've been linked with in the past sort of 3-4 months, not massively, but they don't have that ability. So for me, I think 42 million in this market, if we want to be a proper club, isn't this why we moved to the stadium? Right? You know what I mean? I just think you've got to get it done. And I think I've watched a lot of this guy last year in the Bundesliga. I like him. I think he's got huge potential. And if we don't, I bet you someone bigger comes and gets him in the next year.
Yeah, when you're talking about being a proper club, well, a proper club will actually probably go and get both Van der Ven and Tapsoba, to be honest. But back to the point on what Mitch was saying, you know, is he going to be in time ready for Brentford? I mean, we've had to endure 5 years, the last 5 years of Eric Dyer. So what's one more game? Surely one more game can't hurt, eh? Let's carry on with the panel. And the next question is, and we'll start with you, Sava, on this one, is, are we ready for next season?
No. I mean, I don't think we're ready with anything. We haven't got the signings in we need. We've not sorted out the defence. We don't have a defensive midfielder. Our players aren't match fit. Our players haven't had any time to get used to the manager's philosophy. No, we're not. Now, that doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom. I do think it means that we are going to have some short-term pain at the beginning of the season that I think fans are going to have to be very patient with. I know we've been really patient for many years, but you can't go from the absolute dross we've been watching from the last 4 or 5 years to a really good football team after 2 preseason games, right? You just can't do it. 45 minutes in everyone's legs. So, I mean, this doesn't need to be a long answer. No, we are not ready. Even if we bring in all those players, even if we spend the Kane money in the next week, we're not ready. The new goalie's had no chance to get used to his new back four because it's not there yet. A new back four hasn't had a chance to get used to the goalie. What's the best midfield three? What's the best front three? I don't think we're ready at all. But I'm just hoping that can, in a strange way, galvanise the team, pull together. But I think we're going to start the first game like a house on fire, pressing a lot of the ball, and then I think you might slowly but surely see us fade away.
Mitch, have you ever seen a worse prepared pre-season than this pre-season? I mean, you got the Roma game. You can't really do much about the Roma game because they pulled out for reasons that was beyond our control. Lion City Sailors gets put in instead. You got the game. Who decided to go to Thailand in the middle of like the height of the monsoon season, and then to get back from the tour when that's gone completely wrong? No game for 10 days, and then you've got 2 games in the space of 3 days. I mean, who decided this? And don't forget that Barcelona game is 5 days before that Brentford game. So I mean, this is probably is this the worst planned pre-season you've ever seen at Tottenham?
Yeah, it's a little bit worrying, and I'm more concerned with, I guess, the strength of opposition than the number of games, because when you're implementing a new system and a new manager and new personnel, which we have done, you want to see how that performs against similar standard of opponents that you're going to be playing across the season. I mean, have a look at the other Premier League teams' pre-seasons. You had that summer series where you've had Brentford, Brighton, Chelsea, Newcastle all playing in the summer series against each other over in the States. You've had United and Arsenal playing against top teams as well. Whereas we have really just not, have we? I mean, the Shakhtar game on Sunday, I guess, yes, they're a half decent opposition, but I'd argue they're not really Premier League standard necessarily, or up to a standard that we're going to be playing week in, week out. And then the Barcelona game, I'm not even sure we're going to take a proper squad to that because of how close it is to the start of the season. It would be, I would suggest it would be a little bit irresponsible to take him away midweek in the lead up to that Brentford game, and then to have him back, you'll have like maybe 1 or 2 training sessions, and then the Brentford game's there. Yes, on the other side of things, it'll give you match fitness, but it seems like a lot in a short space of time. So yeah, like you said, the Roma game's out of our hands, and the Leicester one. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of clubs go out to Asia on their pre-season tour, and there's obvious reasons behind it with the marketing and the support that we have out there because of who we've got at the club, obviously. But it does feel like I barely watched Tottenham this summer. You get to the stage in July, and people are on their holidays. I've stick the Spurs pre-season game on my phone while I'm sitting next to the pool or whatever, and you haven't really had that.
Must be nice,
week.
Mitch. Must be nice.
Yeah, I tell me that. But yeah, no, it's pretty underwhelming, and I guess that leads to the overall sense of a lot of people don't really know what to expect. I mean, Savile was talking about it as well. We might well see us go out and press really high and energetically against Brentford, and then we might end up just dying off in that game because of a lack of fitness and because of a lack of practice and putting motions into play in the new system, in the new formation. So worrying, but hopefully it doesn't take too long into the season, because I think we've got to accept the consequence now that we might start the season slowly. And we've just got to hope that it only takes a couple of games to get up to speed with how Ange wants us to play.
Yeah, I mean, it is really frustrating because I'm looking at the preseason of the teams you're talking about out in America in the summer series. I'm looking at Arsenal and Manchester United, and I'm watching these games, and they're proper intense games, like Premier League standing games. And we're like hardly even playing. When we do playing, we're playing the Lion City Sailors and, West Ham in our first game back. And how frustrating is it? West Ham beating. How frustrating is that for you, Sim?
Very frustrating, and especially it's a weird thing this summer. Everyone seems to be really taking the friendlies seriously. I've noticed, like when I'm watching the games are fast paced. They're not played at a friendly pace.
Yeah.
These are teams who are serious about getting ready for the new season. Don't want to walk into the season and still be at that pace where they're walking around as if it's a friendly. They're literally playing the friendly games as if they're competitive Premier League fixtures, and it's been exciting. There's been goals galore in these friendlies. It's been feisty. The players have been angry. Red cards. It's been really, really good to see. And it's been a massive, massive shame that Tottenham haven't been involved in that. And our games have been completely different to that. And yes, it's been nice to see Postecoglou's tactics and system take place, and the small bits we've seen has been great. But you got to remember, even within our games, we've only had 45 minutes of each thing, and then they get changed. So what have we actually seen? That we haven't even seen 90 minutes or even 70 minutes of our first team, what they would look like. After 45 minutes, the whole 11 gets changed, and it's like a completely new game at this point. So it's almost like we've played 4 half games rather than 2 games. That's kind of like what the feeling is. And I think the planning of this football club, I mean, not just the pre-season, which has been diabolical in my opinion, and as Sav was saying, and also just touch on what Mitch was saying actually before, when he says in terms of the squad we're going to take to Barcelona. I think it was actually fairly interesting. I don't know if you saw Ben Davis on Instagram a few days ago. He took a picture with a few of his teammates. He said getting ready for the last pre-season game, which was for Sunday.
Oh, really? Is that what he said?
So maybe that is an indication that we aren't intending, or maybe it was that he could have just been wrong and he just forgot about the Barca game. But it could have been. But it could have been.
Forgot I had a flight to Barcelona next week.
It could have been. That's also. I wouldn't put it past these footballers, but maybe that is an indication that the team we are sending to Barcelona isn't going to be too strong. That could be possible as well. And to what Sav was saying, to have this 10-day break for no reason and then sandwich in 2 preseason games within 48 hours is absolute madness. I just don't understand that as well.
Can I just, I think the key thing for me more than any of this is a lot of those clubs as well aren't going out with a new manager. I know Chelsea are with Pochettino, but a lot of those clubs aren't going out with a new manager. So they're going out, the teams pretty much know how they play. They're going there for fitness. They're going there for sharpness. Spurs, this was more important to us. Other than Chelsea, I don't think anyone else has changed their manager. Someone might tell me if I'm wrong, but I think this was the most important to us because it wasn't just about the fitness. By the way, I don't care about preseason results. I don't think that has any bearing on anything. I remember under one day Ramos, we battered everyone. I think we battered Roma like 7-1 and then took 2 points from 8 games.
Is that when Darren Bent scored like 15 goals in pre-season?
Yeah. Super Darren Bent. Give him time. Bring him back. He deserves another chance. I just feel that it is very much about fitness. But on top of that, I feel that definitely for those Spurs players that have had it drummed into them to play this Conte, Jose style for so many years, that they needed as much game time as possible, as much training time as possible. For me, the club should have bit the bullet on any kind of revenue from endorsements, from marketing, stayed in London, played as many games locally as possible. I don't care. Play QPR, play West Ham in London, play Chelsea, play whoever. Have as many games locally as possible, but make sure the players aren't spending half their time flying around the world, doing press junkets constantly in Singapore, Thailand, Australia. Let's remember we're a football team. Yeah, so I feel like we've literally traveled all the way around the world for the players to have 90 minutes in their legs. If you let that sink in, I know there'll be people going, "Oh, Sava's really negative and blah." 90 minutes. That's not a pre-season.
Yeah,
it's not a pre-season. So, look, it's going to be really interesting to see how that affects players. But it's not ideal. would be the
And
the
it's
upshot.
not even just from a pre-season point of view. Is it not? Are we not ready? We've got so many players whose futures probably look elsewhere out of Tottenham, still at the club. Joe Rodon, Davinson Sanchez,
Hugo Lloris was left
Perisic.
at home to find a club.
Lloris is still here,
Yeah.
and Don Belle's future is up in the air. The Spence probably is going to go on loan. We're hearing there's so many players whose future's also up in the air, and on top of that, no new centre backs in as well to get them ready for the new season and get them acclimatized to a new defence. Vicario probably doesn't know who he's going to be playing behind right now. All these different aspects. Obviously, Harry Kane's future as well. You can add that into the mix, but that's more understandable. We can add that also into the mix. We don't know who's going to be starting the season up front right now. So on the pitch and off the pitch, we're just being like planning wise, it's just been a complete mess of this whole preseason. And as much as there was positivity at the start when Postecoglou came in and Vicario, Solomon, and Maddison came in quick succession, you're thinking, okay, something's happening here. We've just completely let it fester. And now we're in a situation where we're 10 days before 10 days or less than 10
now.
days
9 days, I think.
Before the season starts, and there is just so much uncertainty, and that's just not what a new manager wants. And I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if anyone else has picked up on this, but has anyone else noticed a twinge of a frustration in Postecoglou's demeanor over the last last week or so? I think when he first started, it was a bit more jovial when he was ready to go. I've just noticed in some of the things he said and some of his mannerisms, there's just a bit of frustration seeping into him. Is it just me? I don't know if anyone else noticed that.
He has, yeah. He's you can tell by his comments, can't you? He made comments on the centre back situation the other week, saying, if it was up to me, I'd have him over here quickly. But he knows that's not how it works, and naturally, the Kane thing will be frustrating as well. And alongside those comments came the reports that he would like the situation resolved quickly, which I think all of us would, to be honest. So I think he's probably a little bit frustrated as well, again, just because of how close we are to the start of the season and we haven't addressed really any of the problems that are still at the club. We haven't got rid of the deadwood that was promised to us at the end of the season. We haven't sorted the Kane saga. We haven't brought in the centre-backs. And, there might also be stuff behind the scenes. We don't necessarily know, who's to say that Vicario was his first choice goalkeeper? Was he really set on bringing someone like David Raya into the club, and he had to settle for Vicario instead because Brentford were asking for too much money? Are there other targets that he still wants to bring in this summer that have either been declined or they're waiting? I think there's just a lot of uncertainty around the whole thing. And you've got to remember as well that he's taken a step up in his career, and the pressure and expectation at a club like Spurs is big. Obviously, at a club like Celtic, who, of course, I'm not trying to offend Celtic, are still a big club, but you're in a 2-horse race in the Scottish League, and if you can have a decent run in Europe, then brilliant. But when you come into the Premier League and you're managing a club like Spurs, who are competing against the teams around us with your Cities, your Arsenals, Uniteds, Chelseas, there's always going to be one or two of those teams that are going to have really good seasons, even if some of the others are potentially not necessarily on the boil, like Chelsea weren't last season. There's not a guarantee they're going to be great this season, but the likelihood is they're going to be better than what they were. But what's the expectation still amongst both the fan base and, I guess, the board, is to be challenging for the European places and ideally get Champions League football and challenge for a trophy. And if you don't provide them with those tools to be able to build a squad that's good enough to challenge on those fronts, because you've got to remember that every other team around us has strengthened their squad this summer already, then you can see why he's maybe getting a little bit frustrated. And I think he's very straight talking, and I think he's naturally quite a positive person. And I hope that he sort of maintains that image, and when we're getting into the regular press conferences every single week with the games, he's someone that sort of tries to get the fans on side with the words that he says, and goes in an opposite direction of what Conte did towards the end of his tenure at the club.
And for all the expectations for, as much as like, I don't think from Tottenham fans' point of view, like there's not many expectations on Postecoglou in this season in terms of like where we finish and stuff like that. Obviously, we would like minimum, I guess, top 6, but there's no fans going to expect like a Champions League finish or whatever this season. But at the end of the day, the board have always been notoriously high expectations. They always had that, and Postecoglou, however much his main task from Tottenham, from a fan's point of view, is to set in this rebuild, a new way of playing and stuff like that. He is going to be based on results, and anything that stops him from getting as much preparation to get the best results possible is going to frustrate him. And the board at the end of the season aren't going to turn around and say, "Oh, the results were rubbish, but a great rebuild, mate. Great rebuild, but bad results." They're not going to do that. They're going to say the results are bad and you're accountable for that. And that's going to frustrate him that the season's about to start and he's not in the best place to get the best results.
Every manager always falls on the same sword here at Tottenham Hotspur. You know, they don't get what they need and they get blamed for it. That's the facts of the matter, right, Saba?
Yeah, look, I think where a lot of people thought it would be different, and it still could be different. It still could be. I think where a lot of people thought it would be different with Postecoglou is he's not even asking, like, Conte wants your Bastonis, right? Conte wants your 70, 80 million pound Bastonis from your Inter Milans who are at clubs, big clubs, winning things, Champions League final. You know, I don't think that's expected. He wants your Nicola Barellas, you know, your Lautaro Martinez's. That's not going to happen at Tottenham. I think here, though, we were like, oh, Van der Ven. Good young player, Wolfsburg, not even in Europe. Surely we can do that. And you're like 6-7 weeks into the window going, still can't do that. Tapsoba, good player. But again, you wouldn't put him in the bracket of the top centre-halves in world football, but a very good defender. Can't do that. You know, it was, in fans' eyes, it was David Raya from Brentford. Right, we can't even go to Brentford now and get a player. So, yeah, look, it is difficult for any manager coming in. It looks to me that he's made of stern stuff. It really does look to me that he's, you know, I think he's a man's man, right? I feel like he's not going to throw his toys out the pram. I don't think we're going to get the press conferences that are all about him the way we did with Jose and with Conte. And look, he needs time. I'm really hoping, 23 years in, I'm really hoping that Daniel Levy and that have learnt the lesson of, even if the manager goes through a rough patch, which he's going to, at some point he's going to, first of all, the fans need to be patient, because if you are going to build a philosophy, it doesn't just happen overnight. Look at Arsenal, 8th, 5th, 2nd, right? And now it's even tougher. The league now is, there's more teams up there with money. Newcastle, Villa, Brighton, Chelsea, Man City, you know. So he needs time, the proverbial time that a manager needs. He needs patience. But ultimately, when you're not asking for the world's best, if Levy can't even provide that, then what are we doing here? Like, if this Van der Ven deal falls through, I think fans who still haven't hit their breaking point, I suppose, with the owners, are going to look and go, hang on, what, we can't even get a 22-year-old who's had 1 year in Germany for a team that aren't even in Europe. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but questions will need to start being answered.
Yeah, absolutely. And back on Ange's frustrations, we've heard that the press conference tomorrow before the Shakhtar game has been called off because of apparent lack of interest, is what they're calling it. I mean, Mitch, are you buying that for 1 second?
No, that can't be the reason. I don't see how there could be a lack of interest around Tottenham at the moment with everything that's going on. I mean, even if it's negative media, it's still media attention, isn't it? So you would imagine that there are enough journalists that want to be there to ask questions. You know, there's loads of stuff they could ask about the club at the moment with Kane, about signings, defenders, how are you feeling ahead of the Prem? You know, the Solomon deal and playing Shakhtar. There's got to be something else behind it. I don't know if I believe it, but I saw a story about something about it being Ange's idea, that he wants to sort of cancel it to have a sort of hit back about the whole media response to this Kane saga, with everyone picking up and fueling the rumours. Again, I don't know how much of that is truthful, whether any of it is at all. But I'm struggling with that one because, you know, a club like Spurs, there's always media attention around the club, even if there's not too much going on at that time. So, you know, you have journalists from papers and sites that are dedicated to reporting on Spurs, and that's their only job. So, you know, there's probably enough of them on their own to get into the press room and report on that. So, yeah, not buying it. And I do wonder whether we will find out what the actual reasoning is behind it at some point.
Yeah, I've got a week before the season starts.
I've got a feeling it's revolving Harry Kane.
Exactly.
The whole thing.
They just had a big meeting around Kane. It's a week before the season starts. There's all this talk about new centre backs and stuff coming in. They're telling us there's a lack of interest.
Yeah, literally, it's probably like that heightened point of interest right now, especially with the media and Harry Kane. I mean, Savvy, you buying this one?
I don't know anymore. I don't know. Do you know one thing I always talk with Henry about is, have you ever known a club as unsuccessful as ours that has so much controversy and media coverage as ours? Mm-hmm. Like, I get it. When something at Man United happens, it's huge. They're one of the biggest clubs in world football. And, oh, my God, Ronaldo this. And, you know, they need a new stadium and the owners and the protests. We're a club that for 15 years have just sat here and done nothing. Like, we haven't won anything. And we are in the news year in, year out, month in, month out. New managers, new directors of football, our owners committing fraud, our director of football's committing fraud. Conte's throwing every player in the world under the bus. Jose Mourinho, he's on an Amazon documentary telling players that they're rubbish and he targeted them during Europa League finals. I've never known anything like it, guys. I genuinely don't understand how we're not a bigger club than we are with the amount of coverage that we get. So I don't buy it. I don't. I mean, Ange already, just to go back to a point you made just now, I think he looks a little bit deflated compared to when he first started. And I think now he's realizing what it is like to work with Daniel Levy.
Sava, it doesn't take these managers are starting to cotton on more quickly and more quickly as the new managers come in. I mean, Conte came in with his eyes, shining going into that stadium and into that training ground. And then a few weeks after, he was like, now I realize what's going on here at Tottenham Hotspur. Jose Mourinho was something similar. And now Ange Postecoglou already, the enthusiasm seems to have dropped a little bit.
They'll all know, right, guys? They'll all know that it's not as though Ange Postecoglou has been living under a rock. It's not as though these talks with Tottenham wouldn't have been happening for months, right? About you joining. His team would have done their research. They would have watched DVDs, watched videos of players. They would all this kind of stuff. They know what they're getting themselves into. The more worrying thing for me about any of this is, with all that being said, why did so much of this deadwood have to go on the tour? Yeah. Like, why did so many of them go? Like Spence has gone, right, and not had a minute of football, right? Mm-hmm. Why are we doing that? Why are Dyer? I mean, maybe not Dyer because he's
Joe Rodon was there.
Joe Rodon, we've not seen these players. Wouldn't you have rather have seen like Dorrington or Sayers or I don't know? Like it's all. I don't know. It's all a bit weird, and it just always lends itself back to that theory or whatever that Levy runs the show completely, and the managers don't seem to have full control over everything that's going on. And the fact that Harry Winks is the only footballer to have left this club in 6 to 7 weeks. Strap yourselves in. Long season ahead, gents. It's going to be good for streaming.
All right. Well, let's go to the last topic of the panel. It'll be a fairly quick one, but we're going to get you guys, both of you, well, all of us, to rate the transfer window so far. And then after we do rate it, we can give our input in what we want it to be an acceptable window, or what should happen to be an acceptable window. We'll start with you, Mitch.
Right. I'm gonna go off the premise that we haven't signed Van de Ven yet, because we haven't, and we haven't spent the money yet. So, I mean, Maddison, Solomon, Vicario. The Maddison one is what I guess, gives it a bit of a higher rating than what I would give it otherwise. Solomon on a free and Vicario on a relatively cheap deal. I'm probably giving it at the moment a 4 out of 10 personally, just because for me it can't be a good transfer window until we've addressed the centre-back issue, because that's the biggest area of concern for us. I love Maddison. I cannot wait to watch him for us every single week. And we've needed to replace Eriksen for years now, and I'm glad we've done that. That's why it's probably not at a 2, because Solomon and Vicario is sort of a bit like. But yeah, 4. If I think to bolster it, if we were to just sign Phillips and Van de Ven, you're probably looking at maybe like a 6 out of 10, because at least we've got a centre back in. If you were to sign Van de Ven and Tapsoba, I think you've got to be looking maybe closer towards a 7 or 8. But that's not to say that there aren't other positions that still need strengthening. Again, a lot of it depends on whether Harry Kane goes. If he goes, he would need replacing. So you'd have to judge that as well. And again, Højbjerg, if he goes, which it looks like he's going to, do you bring someone in? Are people happy to let the likes of Sarr replace him? So again, there's a lot of variables with it. At the moment, it's a 4, but I could see it potentially getting up to a 7, maybe an 8 if we bring in more than one decent centre-back.
Sava, what's your rating, and what needs to happen for you to be happy this transfer window?
Do you know what? I never do it by the numbers. I do it by words. This window's been shambolic. Let's call it for what it is. If it was going to be a number, it would be a 1. And the reason for that is it's not just about incomings. It's outgoings as well. We've got a squad of about 35 to 37 pros, if you chuck in somebody under 23s into that, and nothing's been addressed. Nothing has been addressed, right? Like, okay, you've replaced Lloris with, who's still there, by the way, with Vicario. Maddison's a brilliant signing, but let's be fair. And I love Maddison. I've wanted him since he was at Coventry. We've waited until he's got 1 year left on his contract and got relegated. And we've bought a winger on a free, who's a good player, but it's on a free. Like, I don't know what I'm meant to be doing with that information. No one's gone. No one's left the club. It's still the same deadwood rotting in the club, rotting in the dressing room. So for me, have we addressed? I think we've got poor fullbacks we've not addressed. I think we've got poor centre-backs we've not addressed. I don't think the club's got a recognised number 6. That's not been addressed. What's going on with Harry Kane? The pre-season's been poor. No players have left other than Harry Winks. I think it's been absolutely shambolic. However, there is a green shoot in there that if we were to spend the Kane money in the next week and those 3 or 4 new players come in, things start to look a lot better. But at the moment, 9 days to go, 10 days to go until Brentford, you'd have to say it's been another Daniel Levy special. It's been another transfer window where we have not actually done anything to show that we are ambitious, to show that we are a club that want to move forward. However, 10 days, he's got to go and he's got to go and change it. And when people in the chat, by the way, are saying to me, those issues will be addressed. Rome wasn't built in a day. We've had those issues for 5 years, by the way. This isn't a one summer thing that we've needed a defence or a defensive midfielder or a playmaker. This is 5 years. So it's all well and good saying Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not been a day. Every other club's going out and addressing. So it's been bad, but still time is the saving grace.
Everyone says Rome wasn't built in a day, but how long did it actually take to build Rome? Because
exactly. I love it. I love it when people say stuff like that to me, guys. You know I do it. I find it hilarious. Like, this guy's negative. Oh, God, am I? I mean, what are you seeing at the club that you go, yeah, that's brilliant, you know?
How dare you want a new centre-back, Sava?
Yeah, stop wanting better for your football club, you negative guy. Yeah.
Sim, what are you feeling?
I'm more like Sava. Honestly, I'm looking more like a 2 out of 10 right now. I mean, honestly, at the start of the window, I was really happy with how things started with Vicario, Solomon. Well, I would say happy, but I was really happy with Maddison because I was a big surprise that we actually got him. Vicario, I was willing to go along with because I could see the logic going with the cheaper option. on that occasion, as much as I wanted to refer Rare. With Solomon, I'm just more hopeful rather than expecting that he's actually going to be good for us. I wasn't that impressed with him at Fulham, to be honest. I thought he scored a few good goals, but his general play didn't excite me that much. But I'm hopeful he can maybe show a better side of himself at Tottenham. Free transfer makes sense, but no centre backs. The squad is still fairly unbalanced. I'm still not even that sure about our attacking options right now, especially if Kane leaves. And if Kane stays, I think we'll be okay. But if Kane leaves and we don't assign a replacement forward, I'm not that convinced about our attacking options, to be honest, over the course of the season. Defensively, centre backs is a big problem. Fullbacks, I'm willing to go ahead with what we've got, but long term we'll have to wait and see. But I'm willing to go ahead with Emerson, Porro, Udogie, and maybe Davis as backup left back. I think that should be okay. Midfield, we've got so many midfielders. We've got like 9 midfielders right now on the books for challenging for 3 positions. So that's going to have to be trimmed massively before the end of the season. And you got to remember, we've got such a big squad, and it can't have a good effect on trying to create a family feel and a tight-knit team when you've just got so many players. I think it's a similar issue that Chelsea suffered last season, just having so many first-team players trying to fit into the squad. When you only have on a match day, you have 22 spaces, or no, what is it? No, not in 22. You have 18 spaces, and then you a lot of these players are getting left out. So I think right now it's like a 2 out of 10. I'm very frustrated with how things are going. I still think there's potential if we sign a couple of centre backs and we really sort out the outgoings to get it into a good score, 7 or 8. But right now, when the season's a week away, it's madness how much we've got to do. Absolute madness. So 2 out of 10.
I think it's an absolute disgrace that we're sitting here just over a week to go until the season's starting, and we're still hoping for these centre-backs, still trying to negotiate these deals for these centre-backs to come in. I think it's an absolute shambles. It's an absolute disgrace. Last summer, before we went into the window last summer, they told us this position was a priority, an absolute priority. We get on Clement Longley on loan, and then they go to us, all right, we've got Clement Longley on loan now. Next season is the season that we're really going to get those centre-backs in. And now we're sitting here just a week to go before the start of the season. We still don't have them in. And in fact, it's not that we just don't have them in. We're actually long laid down. So we've actually got 1 less centre-back than we had last season going into it. So I think it's an absolute disgrace. And
I'm glad you said it, because when I say it, I get absolutely, I get pelters for saying this. So I'm glad you two have actually said it as well. It beggars belief, doesn't it?
It's a joke.
Belief.
It's an absolute.
The defenders weren't the first thing through the door. First thing through the door, on tour with the club, linking up with Vicario. That should have been the little diamond that you're working on. But
absolutely.
Hey,
who brings in Antonio Conte and does not build from the back? Who brings in Jose Mourinho and does not build from the back? And now we've got a really attacking manager where if we don't have good defenders, we are going to get torn apart week in, week out without good defenders in this system. I mean, I just don't understand it, to be honest. And with the players that we've brought in, the only one who I'm delighted with is Maddison. Vicario is an unknown quantity to me. Solomon, I'm happy with, but I wouldn't say I'm delighted with. And for me, to have a good window, we need to bring in 2 top centre-backs, an attacker to replace Kane. Doesn't matter for me if it's a winger or a striker, one of the 2, and potentially a midfielder as well, maybe once we get a few out the door. And obviously, we've got so many players to get out the door before the end of the window, Ndombele included. So if we can get all that done, I mean, the outgoings, I don't mind if that rumbles on until the last few days of the window. But the incomings need to get done sooner rather than later, in my opinion. So I think the window's been a bit of a shambles so far, that's for sure. But I know you guys need to go at 4 o'clock. So let's end the show now. But Sava, you want to tell the people, first of all, thank you so much for coming on today. And do you want to tell the people where they can find you and what's going on the channel this week?
Yeah. Football Heritage TV, chasing down 10K at the moment. So if anyone did want to subscribe, that would be appreciated. Don't come over, though, if you're worried about hearing truths. If you want to hear that Tottenham are the best club in the world and our transfer window's been a 10 out of 10, probably not the place for you. But yeah, just shows every day and work with people like yourself and Henry and Tapping Tobes and all sorts. So yeah, just come over if you want to and smash that subscribe button. But thanks for having me on.
everyone go and head over there. We do have actually a super chat from Donna Cullen, funnily enough, and she says, Mr. Sava, I'm proud seeing you at big channels now. So big up, Sava.
Getting all sorts of attention, Sava.
Mitch, you want to tell the people where they can find you?
Yeah, just over on Twitter mainly is where I do most of my talking and waffling, to be honest. So, yeah, just hit over 12,500 followers on Twitter. So if anybody fancies adding to that number, I'd really appreciate it. But again, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a good little... I was going to labour it a therapy session, but I'm not sure if that's the right word to describe it right this second. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. So thank you.
No, thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can get you on very soon again as well, and you'll come back. But a few other super chats before we end the show. DJ Samuel says purple and gold until we're sold. Jory says the tour was for marketing, not for football.
I've really got to go. Sorry, guys.
Go on, you can go, Sava. You can go. Ian JD says this transfer talk is a cynical move by the club, and Josh Anthony says that if you could bring back any Spurs player in their prime to the club, who are you picking? Mitch, who are you picking?
Oh, blimey. Spurs player in their prime. Well, for me and my era, it would have to be Bale. Like, simply. he's my favourite ever Spurs player. I mean, I'm 25, so I've not seen maybe some of the greats in all of their glory. But for me, Bale, hands down.
Sim?
If I can give Ledley King a second knee, what do you reckon? I reckon maybe
Ledley King.
Bring Ledley back into this team, I think.
Yeah, so he said Bell, you said Ledley. Literally, when he was saying Bell, I was thinking, who am I going to pick? It's got to be Ledley, right? So I can't pick Ledley now. Who am I going to pick? I mean, Modric, I guess. Modric in that midfield wouldn't be too bad, would it? But look, thank you everyone for coming on today. It's been... I would say it's a therapy session because, we got all our problems there out in the open, and hopefully the club can act on it. But once again, Mitch, thanks for coming on. Thank you to the viewers for sticking around with us for this hour. More content to come your way throughout the day and the evening. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.